So hello everyone, and welcome to this weekly SIG Compute meeting. Um, First of all, I don't see any. Is there anyone new here that wants
Uh,
to say hi?
yeah, like I have joined to talk about an idea that pop up from network working group related to events and the launcher and BMIs and stuff.
Cool, thank you so much. So maybe you can introduce yourself and give us some overview of the topic.
Yeah, so I'm Enrique Llorente. I'm part of QB new working group, also working in SDA with OVN Kubernetes stuff. I'm from Spain. And we were dealing the other day with how we expose problems that pop ups at networking. For example, when virtual machine is using a secondary network, we have a problem in the CNI part of things. Like, for example, it tried to create the secondary network. There are some problems in the CNI, so the multi CNI fails back, right? So how this works is like it propagates as an event, and the owner of this event is the beer launcher pod, because at the end everything's are pods, right? But for the user, the beer launcher is implementation details. Like, it's super weird that you say to the user, okay, you have to go do QCTL, pop describe your launcher or something, or look at events maybe in the namespace. So, I mean, it would be nice to go and say the user, okay, you know about virtual machine instances. So you just go and say, and do kubectl, describe virtual machine instance, whatever the name of the virtual machine is. And then it will go with the normal virtual machine and the events associated with it. And it will have like CNI problems related to the BMI. So this is our rationale with it. And out of the blue, we thought maybe we can kind of clone the beer launcher error events and change them so they feel like owned by BMI in the same namespace, so they pop up in the QCTL describe. So this is it.
So a question. These events, do you think that we should just copy paste them from the pod? Because like as a first thought, I would say that this sounds fine if we like make sense of these events at the VMI level, right? I mean, essentially, if somebody wants to go deep and debug their issues, they'll get to Virt Launcher really quickly, right? Although it's an implementation detail, you're right. Like if you want to really debug stuff, I'd say that you'd get there really quickly. So, like the question for me is that if we can make these, you know, clearer to user facing for the VMI, or if we're just going to copy paste them, because if it's like the same messages, um, yeah, that's just an initial thought.
Yeah, I mean, this is depends how deep we want to go with the event parsing. I mean, we want to really understand problems and kind of decorate them with BMI and say something. This is the underlying pod problem that is this and this and this. If you want to go deeper, and if we put like a reference to the beer launcher pod in the same event or something like that. Like uh, it depends on, like, at the end, it's true that people that want to debug will go to the beer launcher, right? But exposing this as first level at BMI, maybe it's easier for them to go to the beer launcher, right? Like you say, there is some problem in the underlying networking, and we put there like the raw message, right? And we can say also for more input on that, you can go to beer launcher or something like this.
Yeah, so maybe I'll give an example to what I have in my mind. So for example, let's say that I have no like expertise in this front, but let's say just for an example's sake, that like at the Vert launcher, I'm seeing something like CNI operation, this and that failed, right? If we can know that at the VMI level, what happened, for example, is that we misconfigured the device or we have a missing device or something, like if we can translate it to the language of the VMI in a way that the user will understand what's going on, I think that's very beneficial. On the other hand, like if the user will see CNI operation failed or something like that, I'm just not sure it would have much value.
Yeah, I understand. Like, for example, right? Like imagine that we have a BMI with 21 interfaces, right? And just one of them fail. So, and we have this logical interface name that it's only related to the BMI and it's only the thing that users really understand, right? So you say that we, instead of just copy the event, we can detect that this is a CNI problem and that this CNI problem is related to this logical interface name in the BMI. So we can say for the user, there is an underlying networking problem or setup problem with this BMI logical network. So they can directly know what part of the BMI is referencing to, something like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. This is at least my initial thoughts.
Mm. I mean, the only issue with that is it means the part that will clone those events, it need to kind of understand maybe the event message, and I don't know how generic this is, right? Like it depends maybe in Ovion Kubernetes message, it depends on Multus message, I don't really know. And also don't know we can even make this kind of mapping, right, to the BMI. But I understand your point.
Yeah, just my main concern is that like if these events will not mean anything to the average user, let's say, and this is just spam, it will do more damage than good, even if like the message itself is valuable. Um, yeah, yeah, that's just me. Ala, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I had the fortune or misfortune to deal with events lots of times in our clusters that run at a large scale. So I have some questions. First, so for a single Word launcher pod, how many events do you anticipate that would be created? Um, let's say during startup, and that would be cloned to VMI.
I mean, so the only ones that we're talking about cloning, there were the ones related to failing, not the success one. So in the kind of failure we were talking about, like for example, you misconfigure the network subnet somehow. What is happening there is like the beer launcher pod get restarted with backup restart. So every time it restart, and if the configuration is not fixed or something, it will generate again the event. So it all depends on the backup restart, and as far as I know, it has some increased time over time, right? Like it's not linear, kind of logarithmic thing or something.
Okay.
So this is the kind of frequency we are talking about.
I see. So in a successful VMI creation to running, there we will not anticipate any cloning happening. Only when it is failed, there will be some cloning, and then that cloning depends on, well, the rate of the cloning depends on how aggressive the backoff is. Okay,
Exactly that.
that helps to put this in perspective. So there's the fact that we are cloning selective events makes this easier problem from scale perspective. um, at the control plane, the only thing I would want or be slightly cautious of is whatever agent is doing this, um, tracking the events from the pod and doing the cloning, will have to watch all the events that is happening in the namespace to do this mapping. And watching events is an expensive operation at the client side. So you would anticipate some kind of memory and CPU increase happening. Let's say if this is implemented in word controller or somewhere in the KubeWord stack, then we should measure the performance impact in terms of memory and CPU utilization before um, going ahead and implementing this. That makes sense.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was thinking about maybe cheaper solution. So this is for negative use case for failures, right?
Mhm.
Maybe we don't really need a controller running all the time because like most of the time VMs are going to be okay. This is a totally waste of time. So I don't know if it's even possible, like in the place where we discover the VM didn't work fine. If a VM didn't work fine, uh, we look for this kind of events just filtering by timing, right? In this case, we go and clone them, and that's it. Maybe this will make it cheaper because it doesn't really make sense to run a controller like
So
forever.
yeah, that's a interesting idea. So there will be a trade-off to be made. In that case, you are making get calls against the API server, and if a lot of VMs start failing, then you would end up issuing large amount of get calls against
That's
the
right.
API server. So depending on which one is tolerable from the scale perspective, it needs to be thought through.
I understand. Well, I mean, it was just something that we think it improved the user experience, but maybe we are inventing this. Like we don't have, it's a non-issue, and users, this is not going to improve the user experience. I don't know.
So as a user, I can tell you there are lots of other things in the stack where we need to go to Word Launcher for debugging, and having just one more thing where the networking is not set up is absolutely okay for me. I'm fine looking at the events on the Word Launcher. But having said that, I think we are one of the advanced users, so you might want to get feedback from more data point from other users as well.
All right.
Kike, I wanted to ask you whether it's possible to make weird handler as part of the network setup to understand that this kind of failure was and produce an event on the VMI level, or it
You mean
will be the weird handler.
you mean implement it? You mean the agent that is going to do this kind of call it cloning, being the beer handler, right?
Yes, for whatever this network error was, to if it's possible for the weird handler to understand it by communicating with the runtime, understand that there was a CNI had failure, one or another, and produce an event that VMI failure occurs because of network setup.
Yeah, I think it's possible. I mean, to be sure, we have to investigate what kind of parsing we need, because what we don't want to do, I understand, is go and qubit, put something that is just related, for example, for some CNIs like OV and Kubernetes, right? Maybe having something for Multus, or that kind of parse Multus string is kind of good enough. But if we discover that the parsing is really tied to next to the CNI, the CNI implementation, like for example, Cilium, Calico, and Kubernetes,
Oh,
then
I mean, not provide the user with the explicit full information that CNI or other CNI was failing. Just just copy paste the event, the failure, the error, but give the user a hint that was a network setup failure on the pod creation level before the VM even started, before the launcher started inside the launcher pod, and so the user will be able to proceed investigating it on the pod level, not on the VMI level, but you will understand that you will have to look for pod events and to identify more detailed information about the network failure in the pod object. But on the
yeah,
VMI object, more aggregated error. So our setup, our runtime, or the view handler identified an issue with the network setup creation of the pod itself before even entering the phase of creating the network inside the pod between the pod and the guest. Is
I
it
mean that's
possible, or it's currently?
I think it's total.
Possible?
Technically, I mean, it's totally possible. Like technically, I understand it's like at the handler, we detect that we have problems starting the launcher, which I understand we already do, right? Because we compose
Yeah.
there the BMI status. And
Mhm.
if there are some problems, we can maybe put an extra step there that go and dump the VMs, the events related to Beer Launcher, and say, oh, I have detected that we have this, and this event, and they are related to networking issues. So with that, I can compose something that can be translated to BMI events or even BMI information in the status. I don't know, whatever is better.
Yeah, I need to think about it. Maybe the first solution would be like easier,
I mean, it's
but the
not
second
mutually
one will be more.
exclusive. Like we can start with events, play with it, implementing it, and
And see
maybe
how it goes.
it makes sense to also
Mhm.
bubble up to a status. I don't know.
I see. Okay, thanks. So general idea, I think it's good.
Yeah, would be nice. I don't know what is the proper forum to ask real users or users that to see if they are really suffering or missing something like that. I understand like people that are very used to Qubit, they say, I just look for Beer Launcher and that's it, and I don't need anything else yet. But maybe for new users, uh, it will make their life easier. I don't know, but don't know what will be like the proper forum to ask that.
Okay, thank you.
So I mean that's it. I don't know, Itamar, if we need something else or
I think that maybe the best thing we can do is drop a message, a follow up to year one, maybe summarizing what we've been discussing about. Yeah, and we can continue the conversation over there.
what do you mean?
Like as a follow up to the mail thread that you opened.
Okay, follow up in the email. All right. Okay. So you do the follow up, I do the follow up.
Whatever works for you. It might
Okay.
take me a little while, to be honest, because my plate is super full these days. But yeah, sure, I can do so if you want.
No, I will do the follow up. No problem. Okay.
Okay. So thank you very much. Anything else on this topic?
Not from my part.
Cool. So I mainly wanted to emphasize that the freezing is coming fast, as most of you already know, I hope. Yeah, we only have a week left. So if you have any reviews that are that you need any attention to PR or something like that, be very vocal about it. This is the time. If you won't make it, there is a process for exceptions, but we really aim to not getting there. So yeah, that's it from my side. I'll either 5 minutes. Do you think? Yeah, I mean, go for it.
We can try. Yeah, just wanted to continue in this spirit of code freeze. The DRA PR is out there. Anyone who is willing or who wants to be involved in the review, now is the time. In the last few minutes, I wanted to take the time, Itamar, to discuss a little bit of your feedback. So we went back and forth about the feature gates. So as of now, we've settled on 2 feature gates, one for GPUs and one for host devices. Most of this PR is focused on the GPUs part of it, because we don't really have use case or drivers that we can test with host devices. So just want to get some thoughts on should we remove the host devices feature gate and add it as a follow-up, or what do you think about how to manage both of those feature gates?
So personally, I think the 2 feature gates makes total sense here. I mean, the question from I think that we generally have 2 options here. Either we'll have a single cap that tracks the both feature gates, and we I mean, this makes sense if we think that they might not be like graduated exactly at the same time, but we do think that they would somehow align with each other. I would say that like if we, if you think that the host devices won't work, with this implementation, moving forward to GA, and there's like completely different work to do that, then maybe we need another web. But keeping the 2 feature gates, I think, makes total sense.
Got it. Okay. I think both the GPUs and the host devices could work with this cap, because as far as I know, all the devices in libvirt are either PCIe address driven or MDEV address UUID driven, and we have provisions for both of them in this cap. So they could work in this cap. We can start out by specifying the 2 separate features gate in the cap itself, and then in the future, if in beta or something we realize that this was a wrong decision, we can break it out into a separate cap. Does that make sense to you?
Makes total sense to me. And by the way, like if the feature GAs, it doesn't mean it has to be perfect from the start, right? If we support only some host devices, but there are limitations, that's fine. I mean, we can always improve the feature or add more ability to it. So I think this makes total sense. And since we're now sort of in a hurry, I wouldn't like do major changes at this point. I think that keeping the 2 feature gates under the same web makes total sense. And yeah, let's see. Maybe we'll even merge them moving forward if we'll see that the 2 features are aligned.
Makes sense. Okay, thank you.
So we're running out of time. Does anybody have other thoughts about this, or wants to really quickly say something else?
Well, I have something else, and it's not really quick, so.
I have something quick.
Okay, Michael, go first. I'll
I just
corner people later, I guess.
Well, you may have time. I just linked a couple PRs in there that we really are important to get in for like customer migrations and a bunch of customer issues related to adding more PCI ports for hot plug and allow VirtIO hot plugging of disks. So if we could take a look at that, I would greatly appreciate it. I know you're all super busy, but I think they're pretty straightforward. That's it.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll really try to have a look between all the craziness that's going on. Yeah, Alex, you said it won't be quick, so maybe we should defer it. Yeah.
I have one thing that's quick. My PR for the cross-cluster live migration or the decentralized live migration is being reviewed and hopefully should merge within the next few days. The thing is, I have 2 follow-up PRs that are dependent on that are relatively small. I just don't know if with the time frame if they'll get merged in time. They depend on that PR, so that PR needs to go in, and then I can post the other ones. So I'm a little worried about the time there. And for the longer part is if I want to migrate across clusters, I need to trust the certificate authority from the other cluster, and we currently have no good mechanism for trusting certificate authorities from the other cluster, or being able to say, hey, here's the certificate authority, trust it. There's no mechanism for that. And for my testing right now, I'm essentially just copying and pasting the certificate authority from the config map in the other cluster and just pasting it in, and then telling the KubeVirt operator to not overwrite it. But that certificate authority, expires in 30 hours. I forget the exact amount of time. It's a little over a day. And I really need some mechanism for essentially allowing somebody to give me a certificate authority and say, okay, this one is trusted, so that I can communicate with the other cluster. And 2, I need some mechanism for dealing with the rotation. And that's the long part. So that's what I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, so I'll try to provide 2 quick answers. So as per the deadlines and everything, basically there are 2 routes we can take. First of all is to ask for an exception, and this basically means that that we will cut the new release branch, and then we will just backport the feature PR as an exception. The other alternative is that we will just delay the release branch. There's a SIG release. People that are dealing with those stuff, I know that Lubo is one of them. But yeah, in general, these are the 2 options that we have. I guess it depends. Like if you are how many PRs are basically missing the deadline.
And they're fairly small. They're like maybe a few files. They're not like huge. So.
Sorry, Alexander, can I ask you something regarding this 2 follow-up? I think that I heard about 2 follow-ups. Can they be performed in parallel once your decentralized, your main PR was?
Yes, those 2 can go. I'm going to create them in parallel. So I'm going to create 2 PRs afterwards, because both of them depend on the main one. So.
All right. Yeah. So let's try to merge your main PR first.
Right.
I don't think that there will be so many issues from that point of view.
All right, yeah, I think we can deal with all of that. My big concern at this point really is the certificates. Because there's really no mechanism for managing those properly. I'm a little concerned there, so.
Yeah, actually, there I cannot help you. I don't know. Basically, so don't know what to say.
Alex, maybe you can refer me to the PR where you are talking, where this concern that you are talking about with this certificate.
Well,
retrieval.
there's no PR for that at this point. The thing is, once we merged all my PRs, I can now migrate VMs across clusters. The only requirement is that the vert handler in cluster A can communicate with the vert handler in cluster B,
Yeah.
and they need to trust each other's certificate. And that's the part that's sort of an issue. Because there's no mechanism where I can tell the other cluster, hey, here's a certificate authority, which would be the certificate authority from cluster A, and I want to tell cluster B, here's the certificate authority, trust this one, it's good, and now they can communicate. And for all my testing and things like that, I've essentially just manually copied it over, and it works for 30 hours or so, and then it dies because now the authority certificate has expired and it no longer trusted. So
Well, this is because the live migration proxies are using secure gRPC connection, which relies on this certificate. But each cluster was issued a different certificate, so they will not communicate. That's the reason.
yes.
More or less. Interesting. Okay, need to think about it.
So we're going to have like an orchestrator that has a view of all the clusters that would be communicating with each other. So
yeah, one to create certificate
the
chain.
actual act of saying here's the CA, and
Yeah.
you should trust it, is the act of doing that is going to be done by the orchestrator, but the orchestrator needs some kind of API or something where it can say here's the CA to trust. I don't. We really don't want it to just like go into the config map and just start pasting stuff in there, because it's going to cause all kinds of issues. So we
I
need
think
some
I
kind of
understand. Yeah,
API or
the
mechanism
problem.
that the orchestrator can use.
I need to check whether I don't remember if you have such one, but if we need to develop one, we probably need a design. No? Okay, I don't have an answer, but I have to think about it.
Sort of a mechanism where essentially you can create an extra config map. Let's call it, external CAs, and the orchestrator can put the certificate in there, and then the Cupid operator reads that and merges it, because the Cupid operator maintains the certificate for the vert handlers, and it maintains the certificate authority. So when it generates a new one, for instance, it can then look at the other config map and merge the two and maintain it that way. And then the orchestrator can just add stuff to that config map. That's one way I've thought of maybe doing it in the short term, but. Yeah, I think we need to, that's why I said it wasn't quick. We need to think about this a little bit more, because so far I don't like anything I've come up with. So
we can maybe continue talking about tomorrow or something.
Tomorrow apparently is a holiday over here in the US.
You have a holiday.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that. I was just told this morning, like, oh, hey, yeah, you're having a holiday. So.
So maybe if you can send an email with your thoughts, what you have been now just describing in detail, so I will
Yeah,
be able to read it and think about it. It will be great. Yeah.
I can do that to keep it that.
Yeah. Thank you. Sure.
But yeah, it's definitely something we need to think about because we cannot give this to customers and say, hey, every day you have to go and manually copy and paste some certificates from here to there and stuff like that. That's just nonsense. So we need some mechanism.
Yeah, I understand. Oh, yeah. Well, so if you can, yeah, write it down as we said, and we will talk also later in Slack. I will send you a message.
Yeah, I'll definitely do that.
Thanks.
Yep. So thank you, everyone. We're 10 minutes past the time, so I guess we should close this one. Have a great day, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.